A week of rioting, hundreds of people smashing and fighting and swearing and abusing, cars, hundreds of cars set on fire, kindergartens, libraries destroyed, policemen injured. Where? Well, Sweden, of course. Have you heard much about it? It's been covered a little, but not to the extent it deserves. Conspiracies aren't really true. It's not that people sit down and say, let's not cover an issue. There's a sort of consensus of what is thought to be politically acceptable. I heard a long piece on BBC Radio. I've got that Sirius satellite radio in the car. Listen to the BBC a lot. And they spoke about this issue for about 10 minutes. It was an in-depth interview. They mentioned the word Islam once. They used every euphemism they could to not describe the young people who are rioting. Ingrid Carlqvist joins us now. She's been on the show before. She's a writer, editor and journalist. Ingrid, welcome to you. Now, there's still some little fires and things going on, but most of the rioting after more than a week has finished, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. It's a bit better now, but it's been going on for more than 1 week,
Really? Now, put me right if I've got this wrong here, but it seems to me that the reason for this, it wasn't that some police heavy squad went in and started beating people. It was because an Islamic man with a machete who was threatening people was shot by the police. That's what provoked all of this?
Well, that's what they say provoked it. But, Michael, I think that is just an excuse. I mean, they could have used anything. They said this was the reason why they started rioting, but I don't really believe that.
Right. I mean, it's a fair enough. Look, if someone has a machete and we've just seen a murder that's taken place and he's threatening to kill people, if you won't put it down, you can't expect the police to go over there and start to reason with him. They have to use force. But this is an interesting point because others have said this who are brave enough. This is an excuse for us, not a justification. We want to riot anyway. We don't feel Swedish. We detest the culture. We hate being here. Islam is our home, not Sweden, and we're going to now teach you a lesson.
That's absolutely right. And, we have been living with this for so many years now. It's been going on for like 10 years or something. But normally what happens is that when there is a fire in this area, we have lots of these areas, like 200 or 300 so-called exclusion areas. And when there is a fire and the fire brigade comes, young people start throwing stones at the fire brigade. Those people who are coming there to rescue them, they're actually throwing stones on them. So what happens is that the fire brigade, they won't go in these areas anymore. They have to stop outside and wait for the police to come and escort them in. And this has been going on for many years. And every 2 years or so, we have these big riots. It's like they're building up for them. And you're absolutely right. They detest the Swedish society. What they say to the police when the police comes is, this is not your area. Go away. We make the rules out here.
It's quite incredible. A country that's defined itself by its tolerance and pluralism, Sweden, I think probably too much so, but a very friendly, open, generous people. What do these kids want? I mean, let's define, first of all, who they are, because I mentioned the word euphemism. We hear about unemployment and depression and so on. These are, in Paris, by the way, there were quite a few of the rioters who were not Muslim. They tended to come from Africa. They were Muslim and non-Muslim. But in this case, they are virtually all from the Islamic world, aren't they?
Well, I suppose so, because most of the people that live there, they are Muslims. So I suppose they are all Muslims, or like 90% Muslims. And, I think that the reason is just the Swedish tolerance, because we have been saying to them since they came, and we have had so many these last 10 years or so. It's like 100,000 people coming every year to Sweden. Most of them are not refugees, but they're allowed to stay anyway because we feel sorry for them. And we are so tolerant, and we give them so much money and good schools and lessons in Swedish and everything. And then we place them, or rather they place themselves in these areas, and they don't need the Swedish society for more than money. They don't need to speak Swedish because they speak Arabic out there. And they have their own rules, their own shops, their own schools. So they never really become a part of the Swedish society. And that's exactly what they want. Not all of them, of course, but the religious leaders and so on. They want them to have their own societies. And now they're actually telling the police, you don't belong here. Go away. We will do what we want in this area.
See, I mean, if people don't want to assimilate, if they want to have, if you like, even alternative societies, I'm not sure how I feel about that, but as long as they're not breaking the law, it's probably not my business. But this leads to all sorts of things which are contrary and counter to Western values: treatment of women, attitude towards conversion, towards gay people, towards other minorities. Now, I don't know Sweden. I know Denmark a little. There's something not dissimilar in Denmark, but there is an opposition in Denmark, and people can speak about this. Seems to be in Sweden. If you criticize it, you're immediately accused, ironically, of being a fascist.
Yes. A fascist, a Nazi, a racist, a xenophobic, and all kinds of horrible words. Because you can't talk about this, because we have all our politicians, with one exception, the Sweden Democrats. The rest of them, they all say that we need these immigrants, we have to take them, we have a lousy country, we have a lousy tradition, we need all these immigrants to make a better Sweden. But what are we seeing? We are seeing a Sweden that is becoming less and less of a nice society. And you could say that let them have their rules, but what happens is that Sweden doesn't really have the sovereign power anymore in these areas. And what happens then? Then you have given up the power of your country. And actually, the Swedish Prime Minister said last week in Parliament, when asked, he said, we are not going to have more police officers in there. Let the local people manage their own problems, because they are our heroes. They will do it. What kind of a prime minister tells people that if they are burning your cars, throwing stones, you have to do something about it?
Unbelievable.
That's absolutely bizarre.
Unbelievable. We didn't even get to discuss Malmo, the third city, where most of the Jewish community has now left out of fear because of the way they're treated. But we'll have you back on the show, because this is not going to be going away. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Michael.